We're four friends who live across the globe
and share a love of Bon Appétit's YouTube channel.
So we came together to bring you our thoughts on what BA serves up.
And try our hands at recreating their dishes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
Hi, it's LJ.
And it's me, Meg.
And welcome to our very special Pod Appétit Christmas special.
Woo!
We have done Halloween, we've done Thanksgiving, but now it's time to get real festive for the rest of the end of the year. I'm very excited about this because I love Christmas, so I hope you guys do too. This episode, we are celebrating by having a holiday cookie exchange because basically we didn't want to have to make an entire Christmas meal. But remember, we've each decided to cook a BA recipe to make in secret, and we've made them before recording. So in this episode, you're going to hear us revealing what we made to each other and all the gory details that went into preparing our cookies. But first, instead of talking about what we've been cooking lately, we wanted to share our Christmas holiday traditions.
Like you, LJ, I love Christmas. We do Christmas morning at my mom's, and she usually makes sort of like a breakfast buffet sort of thing. Like there's usually like pancakes and waffles and bacon and like sausage, and we can just all sort of have this like breakfast buffet, and then we open gifts, and it's really exciting, especially with the kids. And I don't know, to me Christmas is so much just about like spending time with family, and we usually end up watching some sort of movie. One of my favorite years, we watched as a family Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Oh.
What a
Christmas movie.
So yeah, we're not necessarily watching holiday movies as much as we're like watching movies that we feel like we want to watch. But just like everybody piled together watching a movie in the living room, things like that. That's warm, fuzzy Christmas feels. How about you, Meg?
I have a lot of Christmas traditions, especially from childhood and growing up. And fortunately, I still do go home most every Christmas to celebrate with my parents and my family. So we still continue a lot of the same traditions from when I was a kid. We do pretty much all the traditional things. I don't know if we have any weird things like putting a pickle ornament on the Christmas tree. We don't do that. We're pretty classic. So we trim the tree. We put lights on the house. We have stockings. We open the stockings and the presents on Christmas morning. But there's a few traditions that might be specific to our family that I really cherish. One is that when we were kids, often all of us would pile in the car. So my mom and dad and my older brother and myself, and we would drive around town and look at Christmas lights. And the downtown courthouse and courtyard really does it up with Christmas lights. It's such a Christmassy town, you guys. It's really cute. So we drive around with a thermos of hot chocolate and look at Christmas lights all around town. So that was particularly sweet. I really enjoyed that.
That's like the most wholesome activity I can think of. I love it.
Very wholesome. And I was also thinking in terms of food traditions, and we don't really have a classic Christmas dinner. It really varies year to year. We actually very seldom have ham, which I guess is pretty traditional in America, but we just don't seem to follow that particular tradition. My mom's parents were from Lithuania. They came from Lithuania to America, and she always makes Lithuanian Christmas bread, as she calls it, or sometimes it's called Lithuanian Easter bread, depending on the holiday, but it's the exact same loaf of bread. It's a yeasted, sweet bread with potatoes in it and braided up to look nice, and it's got candied fruits in it and an almond glaze with sliced almonds on top. I think it's really delicious. It's one of my favorite things. I love having it at Christmas and always look forward to it. And I've tried to make it myself before. I'll have to share a photo of side by side my Christmas loaf and my mom's Christmas loaf. I think you'll be able to tell which one I attempted to make. It's a pretty big difference. But yeah, those are just a few things. What about you, Justine?
Well, for me as a kid, like Meg said, I feel like we always try to do like the Christmas ham sort of thing, but it wasn't really like something that we necessarily do, but the ham is for Christmas and, like how turkey is for Thanksgiving. But something special that I wanted to say for food traditions was actually what my family would have for New Year's.
Oh.
Yeah. As New Englanders, we would celebrate the New Year's by having swordfish and lobster and baked potatoes, like a full, like...
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
Clams, like a whole, like, clam bake special on our table.
I'm so into that. Oh, that sounds amazing.
I say to everybody outside of New England, I was like, what, you just don't go to the store and just get some lobsters and just have them for dinner? And they're like, no, it's crazy expensive. And I'm like, poor you.
Yeah, right?
You're missing out.
What a childhood.
I'm like, yeah, we did make some swordfish and shrimp, and my mom makes scallops wrapped in bacon. Like, it's a
my
full,
God.
like,
This is
New England
literally like
feast.
my dream feast because
Yeah, I can see
seafood.
LJ's very envious. I can see the envy.
I didn't even get to try lobster until I was like 23, so I'm so jealous.
Instead of green with envy, she's lobster red with envy.
I'm sorry. So, like, you know that in that back-to-back chef where that wrestler is like, oh,
With
yeah,
the
we're
lobster
totally
roll.
taking apart this lobster.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, yeah, totally. I can't crack a lobster in my hands, but man, can I, if I'm like at a dinner table or whatever with somebody who doesn't know how to take apart a lobster, I'm just like, here, let me do this for you. You're doing it wrong. Like,
Amazing.
yeah. So that was me growing up in New England. New Year's lobster seafood feast at our little dinner table, my family.
That's so cool.
So, LJ, how are things on the other side of the pond?
Well, things on the other side of the pond are, well, I would say as a kid, my mum's side of the family are really close and there's quite a lot of us. And every Christmas we would always spend it together. And I always describe it as like, the beginning of Home Alone when Joe Pesci rocks up at the McAllister house and all the kids are running around and it's absolute chaos. That was my house when I was a kid at Christmas time. Like kids just running around being crazy, the big tree, all the presents, like dogs left, right and center. And it was just like this big madhouse. And I have such fond memories of growing up every Christmas, all getting together and being together for like the entire Christmas period. Because my nan's birthday is actually on Christmas Day itself. And my brother's birthday is a couple of days after Christmas. So, and in the UK, we have the 26th off as Boxing Day. So we would always stay together for like that entire like 4-day period. And it would just be so much fun. Things are a bit different in the UK because we don't have Thanksgiving. So Christmas is the turkey holiday over here. But our particular Christmas day always started at midnight on Christmas Eve because we always wanted to like portion off a bit of the day that was just for my nan's birthday and not just like Christmas. So at midnight we would always stay up like watching TV or whatever, and then at midnight we'd come in with a big birthday cake and like champagne or whatever, or like prosecco, and like sing happy birthday to my grandma and like cut the cake and all have cake and stuff. Then we all go to bed, and then when we were little we'd be up like a few hours later like waiting for presents. But these days we're all adults, so we stay in and sleep for a bit longer. But in the morning, my dad will always make a big breakfast of smoked salmon and scrambled eggs, and we have Bucks Fizz. Do you guys have that over there?
No.
So Bucks Fizz is a mixture of champagne or prosecco and orange juice. So,
mimosas.
Yeah, you call it. Well, mimosa can be different flavors, right? Like different cordial.
Yeah, but it's typically orange juice.
Isn't a peach one a peach Bellini, basically?
Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, we call it Bucks Fizz because I guess we're strange and British, but that's quite a traditional Christmas morning like drink. My dad gets on with making the Christmas dinner. Well, he'll have started it like way in advance, but he'll like get on with prepping it. And he does this huge spread, which is we have like a appetizer of prawn cocktail every year, or shrimp cocktail, I think you guys would call it. And then the main dinner bit, the like entree, I guess, is always roast turkey, roast potatoes, pigs in blankets, sage and onion stuffing, carrots, Brussels sprouts, and probably a few other veg type side type things. And then after we've eaten all of that, we usually all kind of pass out in a food coma for a few hours while the TV's on. And then a bit later, we'll have dessert, which will usually be Christmas pudding, which I don't actually like. Do you guys have Christmas pudding?
Maybe it's best if you describe it.
So Christmas pudding is like a steamed, like suet usually, like mixed.
No, that's way
fruit
too exotic
pudding.
for America.
Like, what is that? My sister makes fudge.
So it's packed full of like usually loads of different dried fruits but soaked in alcohol, and then you mix it with some kind of like suet based batter, and it kind of that mixture gets made up like traditionally way in advance. There's it's not really a holiday, it's just like a day in the diary in September time called Stir It Up Sunday, where you would make the batter for your Christmas pudding and then put it in the freezer.
September?
This is news to me.
What?
Google
I
it.
considered
Stir It Up
myself an
Sunday.
Anglophile until just now.
They need to cover this on Great British Bake Off.
Right?
That's the only way I understand what's happening over
I
there.
feel like you've just divulged a national secret that you weren't supposed to.
But then you and traditionally as well, you'd hide like a silver penny coin in the pudding, and traditionally the person who gets the piece with the coin it's like good luck, but we don't really do that normally. That's just like really like old school tradition. But yeah, so we have this pudding that you steam, and then you light it on fire. You like flambe it with alcohol and that's Christmas pudding.
Amazing.
Wow.
I'm jealous now.
Now, I don't actually like Christmas pudding because I hate dried fruit. But I would feel weird if it didn't exist at Christmas time. We'll have been drinking alcohol the entire day, so I'm usually pretty drunk by the end of the day.
Well, I can't wait to see your Instagram stories this year.
I will say that in the last few years, since my husband and I have got cats, we haven't been able to go down for the big family Christmas anymore, but we have started doing it at our place and inviting my husband's family. So it's a little bit more low-key, like less people running around.
I want to see things on fire.
Okay, all right. I will make sure, just for you, Justine, that I at least light one thing on fire at Christmas. Whether it's a Christmas pudding or not.
Thank you.
Something's getting lit on
appreciate
fire.
you.
So I guess it's time to start revealing our cookies and what we've made for each other. But before we do, being British, I feel like I need someone to help me explain what a cookie exchange party is. And I've nominated Meg for this as the expert in cookie exchange parties, aka she's been to one once.
It was her idea.
Yeah, it's only fair. I suggested it. So, so cookie exchange, I think, is a pretty new American tradition. So I would not be surprised if many Americans also weren't familiar with it. But basically, my understanding is that the concept behind it is that lots of people like to make cookies around Christmas. It's a baking tradition. And I see it as a way to maximize trying the most cookies possible without having an excess of cookies. So essentially, you'll bring a dozen, maybe 2 dozen cookies to a cookie exchange or a cookie swap, and everyone else will do the same. And you'll probably also bring a empty plate with you, and you take one of each cookie. So then you come home with the same amount of cookies you left with, I guess, but you get to try a little bit of each. It's kind of a way of sharing family recipes. A lot of times people bring recipe cards with them with the cookies that you can try them all, and the ones that you love you can recreate. So one of my offices did this one year, and it was a really fun little tradition.
I think that's a really nice idea, and I'm going to try and get it started in the UK.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
That's a low-key one compared to I've not participated in one, but my mother-in-law does a cookie exchange every year. They each have to make a dozen per person who's participating.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's intense.
And I think last year they changed it to like, okay, half a dozen per person because there were more and more people keep participating every year. But it means like she's making a shit ton of cookies.
Is there such a thing as having to walk away with too many cookies? I don't know. I don't know what I do with that number of cookies. Thank you for explaining that, Meg. I now feel like I can proceed with this episode fully informed.
You're welcome.
Before we get into revealing our cookies, I had mentioned to a few people that this is like what we were doing for our Christmas episode and that we were doing like a cookie exchange. So I was like trying to find a recipe and they were like, oh, are you guys all shipping cookies to each other?
No, I wish.
Nope.
I was like, no, we're not going to do that. So
Unfortunately, it's like every episode where we watch Bon Appetit videos where we just have to imagine how wonderful it must all taste.
Yes. And we get to share the cookies with the people in our lives.
Very
Yeah. We've all got really active imaginations, so it's fine. So, shall we get started with Justine? Are you going to share with us what you've made?
Yeah. And I'm like, this is the episode where someone makes the same thing as me.
Yes, that was my concern as well.
I'm really nervous that that's going to happen, but let's
Same.
do it anyway.
Okay, I made BA's Chewy ginger cookies.
Ooh.
okay.
Uh-oh.
LJ.
I'm trying to interpret LJ's face.
If you made them, speak up now.
No, I didn't make those.
Okay, whew, we're in the clear.
Okay. I am going to send you the recipe and my pictures in the general Slack channel.
I would say I considered making these, but I considered making probably a good 20 of their recipes. So
What's funny is when I was on the Bon Appetit webpage, it said accept cookies, and I was like, I will accept these cookies.
Okay, my photos are uploaded.
Ooh.
that interior looks scrumptious.
Okay, so I was looking through the Christmas cookies on BA's website because I really did want to make something Christmassy. I didn't want to just make like a whatever cookie. I'm like, no, I'm doing this. I'm going to turn something into a vegan Christmas cookie, which was ridiculously hard because most of their cookies involved like 12 eggs or no, I'm exaggerating. They involved like a lot of eggs, and I feel like once you get into the a lot of eggs point, you're totally compromising the structure of said pastry.
Right, yeah.
Fortunately, this particular cookie that I found only requires one large egg.
Ooh.
So yeah, there was a bit of a struggle. It came down to like maybe this and I think 2 other cookies that I was like, okay, these ones I can really feasibly do. I was like, guys, do not steal these cookies from me. These are all that I have. I can't do anything else. I've never made a ginger cookie before, and this has 3 different kinds of ginger in it.
Oh, wow.
These are very gingery.
I thought that was, as I was reading the ingredients on the recipe page, I was like, wow, this is some fun stuff going on here. Like all these spices look like they're going to be delicious.
Okay, first of all, I want to say, if you look at the last picture, they came out amazing.
Yeah,
They look
I love
so
the crackly
good.
Yeah.
top. Is that raw sugar or standing sugar on top?
Sugar in the raw.
Nice, nice.
It looks so pretty and sparkly, like really good for Christmas time as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I also brought these cookies into work this past week because I made them last weekend. I feel kind of like I had to like explain. I'm like, they're really gingery. They're really going to remind you of Christmas. I'm sorry it's not Christmas yet, but I made you guys a Christmas cookie. You know, like I kind of feel, for me, are they too gingery? I'm not sure because I don't really ever have these kinds of cookies, you know? Some people were like, they're perfect. I love them. That's a great amount of ginger. Other people are like, maybe a little too much ginger for me, you know?
Okay.
So they are kind of very divisive.
In the way that LJ asked, can you ever have too many cookies? I would ask, can you ever have too much ginger?
Yes.
Right? I was just about to say that. Yeah, I love ginger. So ginger
too.
3 ways in one cookie sounds like heaven. So I love this.
Agreed.
They were pretty simple to make because they're just kind of like a basic cookie, you know, except like you said, they've got the spices in it, the ground ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, black pepper in there as well.
Oh.
Yeah, but I imagine that gave it a bit of, I don't know, spice, heat a bit, you know?
Yeah,
Nice.
totally. Vegetable shortening is in there, which is, of course, vegan.
Yes.
There's 1 stick of butter or a half cup of butter, which I just used Earth Balance.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the picture, which is the first picture, in that bowl is the brown sugar, the vegetable shortening, and my Earth Balance. And in that little bowl above it, that's my flax egg.
Oh, okay. So what's a flax egg?
Flax egg is what you could use to replace 1 egg, and it's a tablespoon of flax meal and 2.5 tablespoons of water. You just kind of do that first. You put it in a little bowl like I have and kind of like stir it and let it sit, and it's going to start to coagulate and get that sort of snotty egg texture to it. And flax meal is good for you. It's got omega-3s, you know.
Is this another one of Justine when she's like, I've made cookies and they're good for you?
These cookies are so good for you. There's so much sugar.
I don't know if 1 flax egg, you know, counterbalances all the butter and sugar and molasses.
Right?
Yeah.
So it looks like you make the dough and then you mix it in the sugar, is that right?
Yeah. You put all that in there. Of course, your wet ingredients, your dry ingredients. It's got a lot of molasses in there, which gives it that brown color. It's got grated ginger, which I bought a microplane.
Oh, yeah.
I'd never grated ginger before. It was a bit like of a mess.
Did you peel it or did you just grate it whole? Because it says peeled in the recipe.
I did peel it. I know that you don't have to peel it.
Right, got you. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did because I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to do it. It says it.
I feel like this recipe was written before Molly got hold of the ginger
Yeah, it looks like it's
regime.
from 2011, so
Yeah,
it's pre-Molly
old one.
days, perhaps.
Yeah. Once Molly joined, she was like, guys, stop wasting your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty much you're like doing the regular, I mean, like it's cookie doughs, whatever. But then like, here's where I had a little bit of a problem.
Okay.
This half cup finely chopped crystallized ginger. That was
Yeah.
also something I've never used before. And I got it online where I get the rest of my groceries. I was like, half a cup is pretty much a lot. So why don't I just like blitz it in my food processor? So I put a bunch in there, but then it just started to get like turn into a gummy mess.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I was just about to, you could see my face. I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
Yeah. I mean, it made that mess, but still, I like took it out and I, you know,
You can-
it was easy to take
Yeah.
it apart into pieces
Okay.
and then spread that throughout the dough and then like fold that into the dough. But it's still kind of made for sometimes you get like a bigger chunk of ginger that you'd bit into, a little ginger surprise. So I feel like if there's anything in this recipe you could take out because you want to hold back on the ginger, that would be the thing.
I love crystallized ginger, though. I'd really like the little ginger surprise.
Yeah,
I'd be
me too.
sad
Yeah.
if it wasn't there.
Totally.
Ginger surprise.
Yeah. It is a little ginger surprise.
Better than a silver penny.
Yeah,
I
right?
mean, you can see it in the picture I have bitten into the cookie. There's a little bit of ginger surprise in there.
Yeah, I saw. I was like, ooh, yeah, nice.
Petition to call these ginger surprise cookies.
Totally. Yeah. So then, yeah, you take a tablespoon, roll it into a ball, roll it into raw sugar, and then put it on the cookie sheet as a ball, and it will bake perfectly.
Yeah. This
Look at
looks
even my
delicious.
bottoms are so perfect.
Your bottoms are so perfect. Oh, look at that cute bottom.
I'm like, guys,
yum.
I'm really good at making cookies. Like,
They look like you nailed it. I'm really pleased. They look amazing.
Yeah. I love a ginger cookie. I love a molasses cookie. It looks like you did a great job.
the only thing is that the recipe says it makes 48, and I only made 32 out of the batch.
Interesting. This might be
Yeah.
a theme for this.
You wanted bigger cookies. No
Well,
complaints.
they
there.
weren't like that big. They're kind of small cookie size. I didn't make huge cookies,
Right.
but I feel like I would have wanted more because a lot of like extra work went into making these. They're not like basic chocolate chip cookies. There's like the extra steps of like the grating and like chopping and you know.
Yeah.
So I'd want more yield for putting that work in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I brought them to work. People told me that they loved them. One person was like, "This is the best cookie I've ever had," and I was like, "Didn't you say that about the Halloween cookies I made?" Like, make up your mind. I don't trust you anymore.
You're just bringing increasingly better cookies. That's great.
That's what it means, that I'm just getting better at making
Right?
cookies.
Yes.
So I think that overall these cookies are super Christmassy and would do very well in a Christmas buffet at your relative's house.
Or a cookie exchange.
A cookie exchange. Because it
Yum.
sounds like you guys are super fans of them. So, yay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, they look beautiful. I will admit, I am not quite as enamored with ginger as you guys are, but it looked like the molasses instantly. I was just like, internal drooling is happening.
Totally.
Do you think you would make this again?
I think I would make these specifically for a party
Okay.
and a holiday one. I don't think I would make them for like the summertime. Just because to me, they really scream Christmas. Like to me, I'm like,
Yeah.
once you
Yeah.
bite in that ginger, you're just like, what time? Oh, deck the halls. Let's do
Well,
it.
it's like a little, like this. It's very similar to gingerbread men, right? And gingerbread. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, it seems
Yeah.
very seasonal to me too.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to accomplish, and I feel like I did, and I veganized it pretty easy. I just wish that they had more easier recipes on their BA site to veganize, but we'll see.
That's
Yeah.
our like eternal shout out to BA. Make
Yeah.
more vegan recipes, cookies
Yes.
specifically.
Justine needs more cookies.
Yeah. LJ, what cookie did you
Oh.
bring to the parties?
So, okay, this is like the big reveal moment where I'm just terrified that one of us is going to have made the same.
I know.
I
I'm real
really
worried
am.
about you and
It's
me,
not a
LJ.
bad thing. It's not a
Okay.
bad thing.
So this is my drive photos. They're on our drive.
I most definitely did not make these.
Ooh.
So I made Chris's Snickerdoodle party cookies.
Wow.
Have we got any kind of double up?
Nope.
Oh,
No.
thank God. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, thank goodness. Oh, such a sigh of relief. Okay, so
These look intense.
Yeah.
yeah, so I, like you, Justine, really wanted to make like a recipe that they developed specifically for Christmas. So I was looking through all their Christmas cookies, and this one really jumped out at me because I really like Snickerdoodle cookies, but I hadn't seen one quite this pimped before in terms of a recipe for this type of Snickerdoodle. But it does have all the flavors of a Snickerdoodle that I really like the cinnamony kind of, which I always evokes like Christmas to me, that spice. So I was just really excited by it. And the BA recipe suggests using Score bars, chocolate toffee bars. We don't have Score in the UK, so I substituted for Dime bars, which I'm not sure whether you guys get those in the US. Do you?
I don't even know what a
think
score
so.
is.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know what a score bar is.
Well,
Yeah.
good, because I had to Google that and I was like, nope, we don't get those. So Dime is spelled DAIM. It's when I was Googling substitutes for Score, that was one that came up. So I was like, well, I can get my hands on one of those and that will do. So yeah, so this was a fun recipe to do. It should have been relatively straightforward, except that it calls for 2 spices. One is cinnamon and one is ground cardamom. Now I have, and you can easily get in the UK, cardamom pods. I use them quite a lot for cooking. But ground cardamom didn't seem to be in any of our grocery store, like chain, big supermarket type things. So I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll order it online. And I ordered what I thought was ground cardamom. And when it arrived in the post, in the mail, it was actually ground coriander, which was fine because I'd just run out of that as well. But it wasn't good for my cookies. So I asked Russ to go on a last minute like shopping trip, as I seem to always do when I'm recording for Bon Appétit, Pod Appétit, I should say. And he went to see if he could find some ground cardamom. He couldn't find any anywhere. So what I had to do was de-pod the seeds from my cardamom pods and grind them myself, which was not difficult, but it just took a long time because you don't get a lot of seeds in one cardamom pod, and I needed 2.5 teaspoons, so it took me like an hour.
Oh. But you got to use that mortar and pestle.
Well,
Yeah.
quite. So you can see, I took that picture of the cardamom because you can see there my mortar and pestle grinding, and then basically I'd emptied out an entire tub or pot of cardamom seeds, cardamom pods even, onto my chopping board, and the furthest kind of pile away from the camera is what I'd opened, and then what I had left I didn't need because that was at the point where I'd made 2.5 teaspoons. So there wasn't that many, but it's just like fiddly because you have to slice open each pod, scrape out the seeds, and like grind it all.
Wow.
I didn't want to do too many because I'm never going to use ground cardamom again, so I didn't want to like grind the entire thing. So yeah, I had to keep checking if I'd got enough. But yeah, so that was like the major faff of this recipe, which wouldn't have been a faff if I'd ordered correctly. But the rest of the recipe was relatively straightforward. You just kind of make your batter. You had to brown butter first, which I've actually never done before, even though I've eaten a lot of stuff with brown butter. So that was interesting because that's an art in and of itself, because if you aren't careful, it can go from perfectly brown to like burnt in a second. So you have to really watch it. You guys are all nodding like you've done it loads of times before. I'd never done it. So. And then you pop that into your stand mixer and you kind of whip that together with your sugars. So there's some granulated sugar and there's some brown sugar as well, and you add your eggs into that, and then you kind of add your dry ingredients that have been whisked together in a bowl, which is like flour, baking soda, salt, cardamom, and your cinnamon. You finally chop your chocolatey toffee bar things and then kind of give that a little bit of a mix through, just to let that all combine together and distribute evenly. And then you do your coating. So I misread the recipe at first because I thought that you put crushed cornflakes and like a sugar and spice mix all in one and like toss it. And when I put that together, I was like, this doesn't make any sense because all the sugar is sinking to the bottom. So when I put my little cookie dough balls in there, they're not going to get any sugar on them. And then I reread it, and actually you're meant to have 2 separate bowls, one for cornflakes and one for the sugar mix. So I had to like sieve my cornflakes to get the sugar off them.
Yeah, can you describe to the listener, because this is the first time that they're hearing cornflakes, what is happening?
It's not a typical Snickerdoodle thing either.
No, so this is what I liked about this recipe is this is one of the pimp items that they've put in, that Chris has added to this recipe. So you make your cookie dough, and then the cookie little balls, when you've rolled them, are coated in a mixture of crushed cornflakes, and then you have another bowl, if you read the recipe correctly, of like a spiced sugar mix, which was basically granulated sugar, some of the ground cardamom and ground cinnamon, and you toss it in that after you've tossed it in the cornflakes, and then you put them on your sheet. So that means that what happens is when the cookie cooks, it kind of spreads out and you get this kind of, I don't know, the cornflakes kind of crackle over the top, and it's just sort of covered in cornflakes and like the sugar mixture as well. So it's kind of nice and sparkly, but also got these kind of golden little cornflake pieces like poking out here and there. And then I got some luster dust to brush, or I actually ended up like tapping it over because my brush wasn't picking it up properly. You can't really see that in the pictures, but you can see it in real life. It's more of I think that's because that's the type of dust that I ended up buying. It was more like a sheen rather than really, really sparkly. So it's quite subtle, but you can see it in real life. And I think that's a nice touch if you're doing it to like impress people at a party or something. It makes them look extra, extra festive, but you don't really need that. It doesn't add anything to the taste. But yeah, I think it was a really nice recipe. They're They were, I have to say, I've eaten quite a few now. They were crunchy and crispy on the edge, but the inside was like lovely and like soft. The toffee from the Dime bars was kind of chewy, but not like super hard. Like it was kind of, it melted. It was kind of still melty. I made them yesterday and I've had one today as well. It's definitely hardened up, like as you'd expect it to overnight. So the middle isn't as soft anymore, so it doesn't stay soft. And the toffee from the Dime bars has really, really firmed up. So it's more like a chewy toffee now. But I don't mind that. Like I quite like chewy toffee. So they look really good. And I've got one here to like show you.
Maybe we can see the luster.
Those are really big.
That's a
cookies.
really big cookie.
That's really big.
It said use 2 tablespoons of cookie dough, and I think I used a little more because it says you can make about 24, and I think I got like 18 out of them. So they're probably like 1.5 times the size they should be, but I'm fine with that.
Well, I think these sound lovely. It has all the great contrasts. So like you were saying, it's got the contrasting texture, the crunchy with the chewy and soft. And then I really like this cornflake idea. You get a little bit of savory in with the sweet. I think that sounds really nice. And it's not red luster dust, as we established in an earlier episode.
Luster dust.
Nice. Yeah, the cornflakes really makes it interesting. I feel like you can do like several sort of themed ideas around this cookie, not just like Christmas. Like if you wanted to do any sort of like breakfast themed
Breakfast
items.
cookies.
You know.
Well, we actually did have them for breakfast today, so
I allow it because there's cornflakes in
There's
it. It's half
cereal in it.
cereal.
yeah, exactly. It would go really well with a glass of milk.
You could do like a whole breakfast cereal series. Like the next one, you could do like a different kind of breakfast cereal, and then a third kind of breakfast cereal.
Yeah. They would go with lots of different types.
I know how you hate doing things just for the gram, but man, this would be good for the gram.
Right, yeah.
Now, if someone just presented me with this cookie without telling me anything about it, I don't know if I'd be able to land on Snickerdoodle. Even though that's the base recipe, there's so much going on here.
Yeah. They're
True.
definitely like Snickerdoodle put on their fancy pants and went to a party.
LJ, when you lived in New York, did you ever go to Momofuku's Milk Bar?
No, I didn't. I don't know. When did that open? Was that even there when I was there? I don't know.
I don't know, but I asked because they have something called the compost cookie, which is admittedly a bad name, but I get a lot of compost cookie feels from this. There's savory and sweet with chocolate and just a whole lot going on.
Right, yeah.
I was wondering if you were inspired by your New York days, but I guess not.
What was the thing of looking at all the cookies that made you go, this is the one? This is the one I'm doing.
Because it was a Chris recipe, I really wanted to do a recipe from one of the test kitchen editors that we know and love. And I also really liked, I'm not going to lie, I really enjoyed the idea that you could add like gold sparkle to it. You can technically do that for anything. And now that I have the like gold sparkle dust, I definitely will be putting it on everything. It doesn't like add any flavor. I just think it looks pretty.
Awesome. They look great.
So Amanda, what did you bring to our cookie party?
Don't tell me you were stressed.
Justine knows I had a rough day. So here are my pictures.
Oh.
I feel like I'm right there with you every step of the way.
Yeah.
I know. That's
Wow.
how I do it. Okay.
Oh.
Ooh.
This is one I considered.
Oh.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah, this
all
is
right.
one I almost did.
So I made Lemony slice and bakes. Any repeats, Meg?
Nope.
Okay, good. Yeah, we did it again.
We won Christmas!
Yay! Yes, I made these Lemony slice and bakes, and partially I chose these because I've never made a slice and bake before. And it's, I don't know, there's something about that just like instantly makes me think of Christmas cookies. And these were, I mean, I looked for cookies under their Christmas heading, and this was under their Christmas heading. This is also an older one. This is December 2011. I also, after my banana bread, I wanted to make something that I knew my mom would like. And as I was looking at other recipes and stuff, I'd be like, oh, what do you think of this? And she'd be like, yeah, okay. So I was like, all right, well, I can't do that right now. I need to and of course, I baked them and she left for a conference. But I already talked with my sisters and we're going to set aside a few for her for when she gets back.
Famous last words.
So I got to do a lot of new things that I'd never done before, like grate lemon zest. And
Excellent.
I don't feel like the actual making was quite as difficult as it had been the last couple times. Like, I still definitely hit issues, which, you know, you do the wet and the dry ingredients. So I asked my sister if we had a microplane, and she was like, "Oh, what?" And I was like, I need to zest a lemon. And she was like, oh, okay, we've got a grater. The zesting of the lemon took longer than I was expecting. I think partially because it was like an actual like cheese grater. And so I had to keep like taking a spatula and like getting it out from the cheese grater. And I was really paranoid that I was going to cut into the lemon itself and not have enough zest. If you look later in the pictures, when I took a picture of the lemon, I had plenty of rind left. I wasn't even close to getting into the center of that lemon, but I didn't know that. And I liked zesting the lemon. So I was like, yay, another cooking skill that I now enjoy.
Yay.
Good. So this had a lot of 2 sticks of butter in it. And I did make sure this time I had the butter out overnight so that it would be room temperature. However, our furnace is out. So I didn't think about the fact that room temperature with a furnace out probably isn't that warm.
Warmer than the refrigerator, surely.
Yeah, definitely warmer than the refrigerator. When it was time to mix those wet ingredients, like mix the butter and the vanilla and the lemon zest and the granulated sugar, it was not really, because it kept going like, wait until it's light and fluffy, and it wasn't really doing that. It was more like, if you look in the pictures, like bits of butter. So it was reminding me more of like Claire do like a pie crust or something.
So with the cookie, as long as it's all incorporated, that's what you want. Whereas the pie dough you were describing, they want to keep those pieces discrete in the dough. But as long as you mix it all together for the cookies, which it looks like you definitely did, then yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah. So this called for egg yolks. I was going to take a picture of like how excellently I was like mixing the egg, like doing the back and forth between the eggshells to just get the yolk. And then I realized my hand's covered in egg. I can't really take a picture of this. So I'll just describe it to you. But I totally killed that. And
yeah.
That's a skill I'm still working on.
I did on one split the yolk, but there was one that was so perfect. Like I just did like the back and forth, and it was like, I was like, God damn it, why can't I take a picture of this one and impress them?
You don't need to take a picture of it. Like, you just telling us and we're impressed.
I was just so excited that it worked. So I added the egg in, and so then it was a little bit smoother, and the butter wasn't quite as crumbly, but it was still pretty crumbly. I was mixing and putting the flour and the salt in, the dry ingredients, and it wasn't really incorporating, and it kept getting caught on like my mixer things. So I was thinking, well, this is looking so much like Claire's dough or pie dough. If I want to incorporate the butter, I'm just going to get in there with my hand.
Girl.
So I ended up smushing it with my hand and forgot that I still had my wedding ring on. That got covered in lemon dough. But I finally got it to like the right consistency. It said you were supposed to put it into like 10-inch logs. I didn't measure it out exactly. I just kind of cut it in half and just shaped it. Maybe I should have done sort of like special shaping or something, but I just rolled it in my hands. It was supposed to cool in the fridge for an hour, and I was running low on time, so I put them in the freezer. I felt like I was doing Great British Bake Off when they're trying to make things cool. And then I made the icing, which is where I definitely think I messed up. it was just confectioner's sugar and lemon juice. And so I had like my little juicer. And once again, I really like juicing citrus. Like it's very satisfying. And I feel like I don't screw it up too much. I was supposed to have, I think it was like 2 tablespoons or more of fresh lemon juice. I think what I should have done when I juiced was like put the juicer over a measuring cup or something instead of just a general bowl, because I had a hard time measuring it, and I ended up just pouring all of the juice in with the confectioner sugar, and then it was super loose because I didn't think I had enough, and then I had more than enough. And so I ended up adding like bit by bit like half teaspoons of confectioner sugar to thicken it up a bit. And I still don't know if I actually got the right consistency. My sisters said when they tasted the cookies that they were a little thin. I put that aside, and then I sliced my cookies, and there was the weird end bit that's like looks like a monster. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to eat that as dough. So I ate that, and the cookie dough is delicious.
Scooby snack.
Yeah, so you bake them for, I was like 16 to 18 minutes, like what you said, LJ, until like the edges get a little brown. I don't know if you can see, like a couple of them I had sliced a little too thin and they browned up too much. So I ate those warm, so they were gone. I was like, be gone with you. And then I cooled, and then I put the icing on, and they taste very much like lemon shortbread. Which is another, like, I always associate shortbread cookies with Christmas.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, it looks like you made a nice lemon glaze instead of icing, which is totally fine. Still got the lemon sugary flavor on top there.
Yeah. My sister said they really liked the flavor of it. They'd wanted more of it.
Man, these cookies take me back to like middle school home ec when we learned to make refrigerator cookies.
So did you end up baking both logs, Amanda, or are you saving one log for later?
No, I'm actually saving a log and a half for later. I just made a dozen for now because they can, I just wanted to make enough to kind of share it with everybody for this. But then I thought, especially with my mom being out of town, I could like freeze one log and bake it when she gets back.
Yeah, and that's like
definitely.
The good thing about refrigerator cookies is you can make as much as you want.
It says it's supposed to make 50. I don't know if it'll quite make 50, especially because the thinner ones were like way too brown. And it had an optional of sanding sugar, and I did not do that because I didn't have enough money to also buy sanding sugar. So I just went with what I had.
Who's got sanding sugar just sitting around?
Yeah. I like them. They look super Christmassy.
Yeah, they look
good.
cute and petite. I like the color on the ones that baked nicely. They look really good.
Oh my god, these look so cute. They look like shortbread. I love shortbread at Christmas. It's the best.
Oh yeah, I had a question. Did you wait for the cookies to cool completely before icing them? Because if they were even a little bit warm, that might have also contributed to the icing being looser.
Yeah, I did. I put them in the freezer again to cool them faster. So they were pretty cool when I put the icing on. It's just, it's definitely a loose icing. I think, like you said, more of a drizzle. And also, I didn't know how to make it look fancy. I tried doing like the back and forth, and instead it just got all over the plate.
So Amanda, I think when I have done this type of icing before, I have found out that actually a better way of getting the right consistency on the icing is if you start with how much sugar the recipe suggests, and then I get whatever liquid it's saying to mix with it. So sometimes it's water and lemon juice. You know, this case it's lemon juice. And I add that water or the liquid bit by bit, and then you can better control the kind of consistency and how loose it is, because you know you can always add more liquid in, but you can't take it out, you know, because once it's too loose, it's gone too loose. So I've always added it like little bit by little bit, so it starts off like super thick, almost like a dough, and then you add a bit more, it loosens up a bit, and that way you can get it to exactly the right consistency for icing and getting a really good kind of glaze type icing on there.
Because another thing that was optional was food coloring. I didn't want to do food coloring. I just wanted it to be natural.
Where does the food coloring go? In the icing?
in the icing.
Oh, it looks so pretty white.
Yeah, I like the white, Christmassy, snowy look for sure.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, I'm not going to do food coloring.
What are you going to do? Like red and look like blood splatter?
Yeah, I think you made the right call, Amanda.
I know. I was like, and it's hard to tell in the pictures, but like it does have like it's definitely like white, but it had like a yellow hue to it because of the lemon juice. It just was like a very slight yellow hue.
Are you adding these to your personal recipe book?
I actually think I might be. I liked making these a lot. It wasn't crazy stressful like I felt on some of the other things I've done. And it wasn't like the longest chunk is just like letting them cool down in the fridge or whatever.
And the way you describe the recipe is you can do each part on a different, it's like you said, you can make the icing like way ahead of time, put that in the fridge. You can make the refrigerator cookies like the night before and then just pop them in whenever you want to bake them. Like you can pace it out.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I liked that I didn't, because sometimes like when I make cookies for the holidays, it's like you feel like you have all the dough and you've got to like get it all done and you're just like rotating pans constantly like in and out. And I kind of liked that this was like, okay, I could make a dozen and then that's fine for today. And, you know, I can spend half an hour tomorrow when I get home from work and do it again. Okay, so yeah, those are my lemon cookies. Thanks for liking them. And what did you make, Meg?
I made spiced brown butter Linzer cookies.
What?
Let me share with you just a moment.
I almost made this one, Meg. I'm so glad I didn't. Oh my God.
Oh,
Half their cookies are like this. Oh my
see,
God.
I looked at this and went, oh no, I can't do that. And just went by. Oh my God, Meg.
Oh my God. Oh my,
my
God.
God.
Meg.
Okay, mic drop. I'm just going to leave. Thanks, guys.
Next time, can you do like our initials and there'll be one for each of us?
Oh, that would be so sweet. I will definitely do that next time.
And this is why Meg goes last for
This
cookies.
is your Christmas present to me is praise. I live for it.
I'm like, did you steal these? When are you opening your bakery? Can I come work for you?
Okay, so for any listeners who may not know, a Linzer cookie is a sandwich cookie. And the very characteristic thing about a Linzer cookie is that there's a shape cut out in the top so that you can see the jelly filling. And I chose these a lot for the aesthetic. It's got the bright red jam in the middle, which I feel is very Christmassy. And then it has the powdered sugar on top, which kind of reminded me of snow. So those were a couple of reasons why I chose this particular recipe. And also, like LJ, I was hoping to find one created by one of the test kitchen members we know. So this is a recipe by Claire. My parents often make cookies for Christmas. They make lots of cookies and share them with neighbors and family. So at first I was looking for maybe a family recipe that BA had done a similar version of. But my parents usually make snowballs, which are little powdered sugar cookies, or pecan praline rounds, or sometimes thumbprint cookies with the jam. So I thought that the Linzer cookies would remind me of the thumbprint cookies.
Yeah, I make thumbprint cookies all the time, and you're right, these remind me of them.
Yeah, so it also personally reminded me of Christmas in that way. It has a lot of similar flavors to some of the things in LJ's cookie. I was laughing at the cardamom because mine called for ground cardamom as well, and that's one of the main flavors. But fortunately, I just have a jar of pre-ground cardamom, so I didn't have to go to too much effort for that. But so the spice aspect of this is the cardamom, cloves, black pepper. So kind of like Justine's got a little kick of black pepper in there. It also has lemon zest like Amanda's. I feel like all of your cookies have elements of mine and vice versa. So I'm kind of enjoying that. But it's got a lot of lemon zest. It has a vanilla bean pod. And the jelly inside is red currant jelly.
Oh.
And I really enjoyed the flavor. I've noticed a lot on the BA videos when they're describing flavors, they tend to say which flavor is forward and which flavor comes next, and then what the ending flavor is. And I can't say that I always experience that when I'm eating something, but I feel like these cookies definitely had a distinct sort of flavor journey. So you take a bite and it's very lemon forward. It's very zesty, bright lemon. And then you kind of get the spices after that. And occasionally you'll get a little extra kick of black pepper. And then it ends with the tart, acidic red currant. I was considering altering the recipe a little bit and picking a jam that I like more, like strawberry or raspberry, whereas black currant is, it's fine. It's just not one of my, or red currant, it's fine. It's just not one of my favorite flavors, but it's got that nice tartness, which I think was kind of necessary for the recipe to sort of balance out the sweetness, and it's very complementary to the lemon flavor. So I'm glad I went with the red currant jelly in the end there. And LJ mentioned browning the butter, and I was nodding along because one thing I think I could have done better was brown the butter a bit more. I was very concerned about burning it. So I was cooking it on the stovetop, and it was getting slightly brown, but I was going way over the suggested amount of time to cook it. I was starting to get very concerned. I'm like, well, I'm cooking it for much longer than the recipe calls for, but it's still not, I think, as brown as it should be. But I ended up just calling it because I thought it was taking too long, and maybe I was burning it without realizing it. But yeah, I didn't really get the brown butter flavor in the end. I definitely got a rich butter flavor, but I don't know about browned.
Oh, Meg, so with browning butter, I had to do that for my cookie recipe as well. And I had exactly the same issue as you, as I was like, how do I know when to pull it? How do I know that it's done enough? I don't want to burn it because I've heard that it kind of turns quickly, but how do I know? So I actually Googled it, and I found this really helpful article from the kitchen that says it kind of laid out all the stages, which I found super helpful for knowing like where on the spectrum my butter was and not pulling it too early. And it basically said that the butter goes from a lemony yellow, like after it starts foaming, it goes from a lemony yellow to a golden tan to finally a toasty brown. And that helped me because mine was at like a golden tan stage for quite a while. And if I hadn't known any better, I probably would have pulled it at that point. But it was only because I read that article that I was like, oh no, it goes darker. It goes like toasty brown. I'm going to wait for that. So I did. So I think really more recipes should have that kind of spectrum of instructions on there, because I found it super helpful. So maybe that will help you next time.
That's good to know. I'll definitely keep that in mind for next time, because I for sure got to the foaming stage and the separation of the milk solids. I definitely saw those when browning the butter, but I guess I should have hung in there a little bit more. But the butter overall was kind of a concern for me because, so you've got 3 sticks of melted butter, which is a lot of melted butter. So the consistency of the dough was quite wet, I thought. And I was a bit concerned. I was just imagining when it got to the baking stage that they would totally lose their shape and spread out because of the butter content. But after chilling the dough and then having the chilled dough prepared, it really had a much firmer consistency. So my fears were sort of assuaged by that point. And yeah, they kept their shape pretty well. I had a question for you guys. Do any of you have one of those rolling pins with the spacers that allows you to get the exact measurement when you're rolling something?
No.
So it'll have spacers on the end. It'll be like 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, so that it uniformly rolls the dough. So I was really considering getting one of these because for this recipe, you had to roll the dough to 1/8 of an inch, which is pretty thin. And I found out later it was pretty important to get the dough uniform because when you're sandwiching the cookies, if one was even slightly thicker, there would be a little bit of overhang or it might have spread out a bit more. So I'm considering getting one of those rolling pins, perhaps. But yeah, I was really happy with these overall. I will be making them again because I only baked half the dough. So I have half the recipes still in the freezer ready to go whenever I want to make them again. They are a bit finicky with making sure you have an even number and cutting out the shapes and everything. But I was pretty pleased with the end result.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how many you made.
So this made an even dozen, but it was actually 24 cookies because you sandwich them. But in the end, it comes out to just a dozen. But I have the rest of the dough in the freezer, which should make another dozen total at the end.
When you make it again, are you going to do the red currant jelly, or do you think you'll mix it up?
I think I'll probably do the red currant jelly again, only because I kind of had to get a whole jar of it.
Oh.
And I don't really foresee myself using it in other applications. So yeah, I'll probably do that jam again.
Can you describe to the listeners the shapes you've made and why you chose them?
Sure. So I'm not sure if there's a traditional shape for Linzer cookies, but I have seen a lot with the scalloped edge on the outside cookie. So I used my scalloped edge cookie dough cutter. And then some of the inside shapes, there's a circle, there's a diamond, there's a square, there's sort of like a rectangle. I really wanted a star or a heart, but unfortunately I couldn't find in the proper amount of time small cookie dough cutters with any of those shapes. But actually, I was hoping to use this cutter set that I bought for the outside of the cookies as well, the bigger cookies. If you look at the Bon Appétit recipe, you'll see that the entire cookies themselves, some of them are diamond shaped, some of them are rectangular. So I don't know if the Amazon description was incorrect or, again, if I'm just bad at measurement, but when I got the actual cutters, they're quite small. Way too small to make an entire cookie out of. So I just ended up using those for the interior cutout window to show the jam.
When you bite into them, are they messy to eat?
I was expecting the jam to set more than it did. The recipe said wait until the jam sets, and I waited quite a while because I wasn't eating them right away. I even chilled them, and still keeping them in the fridge, the jam doesn't set as much as I would have hoped. Like the cookies kind of slide around a tiny bit, but it's really not that much jam, and most of it is in the center, and it's just kind of like a little bit to sort of glue the cookies together. So they're not terribly messy. The powdered sugar is a little bit messy, but not as messy as other powdered sugar cookie recipes I've had. And I think I even went a little heavy-handed on the powdered sugar, whereas in the photo they had a bit of a lighter touch.
So, Meg, I don't know if you know, but there is a cookie in the UK that we have that's just like sold in, like mass produced and sold in packages in grocery stores. It's very, very common, and it's basically a Linzer cookie. It looks exactly like this, and it's called a jammy dodger, and that's what yours remind me of. Your cookies look at, like, especially because they're kind of round with a little heart shape in the middle that you can see the jam through.
Oh yeah,
they don't have the icing sugar or the powdered sugar on top, but they're basically look exactly like your little round cookies. So that's what yours remind me of, like really gourmet versions of jammy dodgers.
Oh.
Jammy dodgers are so good.
Maybe you already said it, but what is the actual cookie? I don't know. How would they say it on Great British Bake Off?
I guess it might be a shortbread, perhaps, although I think that shortbread has a really specific ratio of butter to flour. And in looking it up, I don't know if this is quite a shortbread then, because it was almost 1-to-1 butter to flour, whereas shortbread has higher flour than butter. So I'm not entirely sure what kind of base cookie you would call this, but kind of shortbready consistency, maybe between shortbread and sugar cookie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love how we've kind of stuck true to our personalities in that Meg has picked something where she's gone really above and beyond. Justine's picked something she wants to veganize. I've picked something that I'm like, this is super yummy. And Amanda's picked something that's super, like, the easiest thing for her to learn. And yeah, I think that's great.
Are we continuing to be on brand?
Oh, I like how you said that the powdered sugar reminded you of snow, because as soon as you sent the picture, that's instantly what I thought of. Like, it does. It's like you literally made snow cookies, but with blood? I don't know.
Blood? Okay.
I was going to say, I'm glad to hear that, but then it took a turn at the end.
It's a little window of happiness.
No, sorry. It shouldn't be blood. What's something red at Christmas? This is not blood.
Gee, I just can't think of anything red at Christmas.
Like,
It's like a little, like, stained glass window. It's like a church window sort of thing.
That's
Church in the
better.
snow.
I was trying to think of a berry, but that makes much more sense. See, this is why I need you, Justine. I go into horrible morbid mode.
And on that note, Thank you so much for listening to our Christmas episode. We hope you enjoyed it.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas!
Happy holidays! Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit, a Bon Appétit fan cast.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Until next time, the test kitchen is closed.
Hi, I'm Ellen, and I'm scared we exist in the Matrix.
I'm Jaslyn, and I'm bad at ad-libbing.
And you're listening to
High Expectations,
the promo. For our international listeners, you can appreciate our cute New Zealand accents. For our local listeners, you might bump into us in the street 3 times in the same hour. Our podcast is about pop culture,
Sexuality,
relationships,
interesting hobbies.
banter, and ragging on each other.
You can find us on
Apple Podcasts,
SoundCloud,
Pocket Casts,
Podcast Addict.
or anywhere you might like to find podcasts.
Yay, please subscribe.
Goodbye!